Hey guys, this is Eric. I just wanted to. I'm hoping to kind of start a new series of videos that will just kind of be sporadic and whenever I feel like doing them. Kind of like Steve's new Bat Chat Adventures, which is not the name, but I keep calling it that until it sticks. But Steve's new Bat Chat Adventures, continuation of the Bat Chat, where it's just kind of him talking about um, Batman ideas and stuff. Less so like reviews and more just bigger idea topic kind of things. I'm hoping this will be something like that, just a little bit more general. Always geek focused. It's not going to be about like politics or religion or anything like that. Uh, so before I actually get started, I want to make sure I mention uh, when I came up with the idea for this, I talked to Cap about that I don't really like doing webcam videos. I do them and I will do them, but I'm not super comfortable with it, especially for a video like this where I'm just kind of vibing. Um, I really would prefer not to do that. So I was like, oh well, I'll just use an image. I'll just do it the way I do it on my channel. Um, and I was like, I don't really want to use that Constantine image. Uh, I kind of like that on my channel, and that's fine. But I wanted something specifically for this video series. So I messaged Gary Thomas Jones, who's someone who's a fan of my videos, and we've kind of communicated back and forth over the years. Who is a fantastic artist, and I basically told him what I wanted for the picture, and he made it. Um, I'm gonna put his Twitter name down in the info. If you guys like this picture, because I think it's awesome. If you guys like this picture, make sure you go over to Twitter and let Gary know how cool you think the picture is. Um, On to the actual topic of the video. I want to talk about the death of Superman. Not the death of Superman. I'm not talking about the storyline itself, but what happened after the death, and if I think that it could ever be done again. Uh, some of this is more historically gained knowledge than it is like I wasn't there for the death of Superman. I think I was one, maybe two when Superman died. So I have no first-hand experience with this. A lot of it's from interviews and things people have said from the time. But one thing I constantly hear is that when Superman died, people assumed that was it. He was dead, they're canceling the book. And it kind of varies. I'm not really sure if it was immediately after the death issue or if it was after a funeral for a friend. I think it was after the death issue. Um, but like people, especially people that weren't big comic fans or weren't Superman readers, uh, there was this kind of feeling of just like, well, that's it. It's over. Superman's dead. No, man, he's dead. They're gonna cancel the book. And maybe it was just a more innocent time. I mean, this is a time when holographic covers and foil covers and artists over story or coherency were selling books. Um, so maybe it was just a more innocent time. As many people like to point out, especially the writers, this wasn't even the first time Superman had died. Superman had died many times before. They didn't. What part of the story of the death of Superman is that the writers had no idea it was going to be this big deal. Uh, because he died before, and people die all the time in comics. Which I would like to put to rest the myth that no one ever comes back, or that everyone comes back. Um, we're like 10 years on from Banshee being dead, and he still hasn't come back. I mean, he's come back as a zombie, and then as a zombie Horseman of Apocalypse, but like Banshee's never come back. Whoever Goliath is in Civil War, I don't know who he is. My friends and I just refer to him as Black Goliath because he's a black guy and he's Goliath. I don't know who he is beyond that. He's never come back to life. Everyone doesn't come back. It's just the major characters. Um, I think the closest we got was Captain America Civil War, or Captain America Civil War, was Civil War right after Civil War in the Captain America book, where Captain America died. I'm not sure how much people really believed Captain America was dead. I mean, part of it is, Joe Quesada and Ed Brubaker coming out and saying, look, he's going to come back at some point. That's going to happen. But we're not even thinking about that right now. Right now, all we're thinking about is telling the best stories that we could possibly tell. Um, and then, Captain America's book kept running. And we knew that we were leading to a new Captain America. We didn't know who it was. We just knew we were leading to a new Captain America. Which, by the way, that's one of those myths that feels so ridiculous in retrospect. Like, I remember people speculating who was going to be Captain America. In retrospect, it's really obvious that it's Bucky. Um, like, that just seems like the most obvious choice. Like, it's the character Brubaker brought back. He's basically the major focus of the run until that point. I don't know why anyone didn't think it was going to be Bucky. That would be my first thought. Anyways, my point is, I'm wondering if we can ever have an event again that is so big and maybe even so well written. I mean, the death of Superman isn't the best written story of all time. Most of the really good stuff from that story arc comes from after Superman dies. Until that, it's just Doomsday punching his way through the least impressive Justice League roster of all time, and then Superman and Doomsday punching out to the death, which is really cool. I like it's done really well. Uh, it's still not the best written story, but do you think that could ever happen again? Like, I know that Sarah Pazzini just retired from Witchblade. I think Witchblade's ending. I'm not sure if Witchblade's ending or if Sarah's just leaving, but one of those two things has happened. Um, I know the Darkness died too, but like that doesn't really count. Like his book was already canceled, and they just put out a graphic novel where the Darkness died. Uh, so I don't know. I've been thinking about this. Maybe it's coming off of uh, Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, but I've just been thinking about like could we ever do anything like this where people believe like if at the end of Civil War Captain America dies or Iron Man dies, uh, will the movie audiences believe it? Will there be this idea that, well, that's it, Iron Man is dead? And I don't know. Um, I don't know. At least at the big two, I'm sure Valiant Comics could do it. I like you could probably kill one of their major characters and make a big deal out of it and get away with it. Bloodshot or Exo Man of War, or maybe not the Eternal Warrior. I think he's immortal. But you could kill someone and like make a big deal of it, and they probably could keep them dead. I don't know if they would. Like, Valiant is also an IP. Everything there are IPs. Um, I don't know. I'm really fascinated by this idea of us, the audience, truly believing that someone is dead, and I wonder if we're just too cynical now. Johnny Storm died, and he came back a year later. Uh, has Bucky Cap died, and he came back the next month. Well, it was revealed that was Life Model Decoy and not actually Bucky, and they just used it to pretend Bucky died so that Bucky could go back to being like a covert operative. But I don't know. It's something I never got to experience. Superman had already died and come back. The rule of no one stays dead except for Gwen Stacy and Uncle Ben. That was long gone by the time I started getting comics. By the time I was really getting the comics, because I really start getting the comics right before Infinite Crisis and Civil War. So I'm probably jumping in right before, if not right around the time Bucky comes back and Jason Todd comes back. Um, So, like, for me, I've always been inundated with this idea of, well, no one stays dead. I wonder, is that mechanism of storytelling broken? Just forever, for the at least for the big two. Will we ever believe that someone is dead? I know whenever they kill someone, like it's gonna get news coverage if they're a big enough character, because for some reason the 24-hour news cycle hasn't caught on to the fact that these characters come back 6 months later. Um, or even if they have, they've got a 24-hour news cycle. They need to, fill it with something. Um, Captain America recently had the super soldier serum drained out of his body, and he rapidly aged very fast. Um, and so now he's an old man, which I think is being undone by the time Civil War comes out. Big shocker. Uh, but I remember when I first saw that, and I was like, "Oh man, that's really cool. Like that's kind of something." Uh, but only because it was Rick Remender, and I assumed it was going to be part of Rick Remender's story. Like he had things to say with that change, not that it was going to be a permanent change for the company moving forward. Um, I think I think there is one. I think there is one death that Marvel might be able to do that people would believe that they're dead, and that's Captain Marvel. Because the original Captain Marvel has stayed dead. He died of cancer. Not that he hasn't been in comics. For a while, he was kind of just the Shazam Captain Marvel uh, with Rick Jones. Rick Jones had these power bands, and he'd bash them together, and he'd become Captain Marvel. And I remember, I don't know if the Silver Surfer goes to hell, or if he goes to the underworld, or if it's just part of a vision Thanos gives him. But I definitely know somewhere around the Infinity Gauntlet, uh, Silver Surfer goes somewhere where there are like skeletons slash decaying bodies, and he has to fight him off with Captain Marvel. So it's not like Captain Marvel hasn't been around, but he has canonically and technically stayed dead. And so I think, knowing that legacy of that character, you might be able to pull off Carol Danvers dying and make people believe, like, the first Captain Marvel died, this one's dying too. Um, Maybe when the Captain Marvel movie came out, like, after, a lot of people really like Carol Danvers, especially since she's taken on the role of Captain Marvel. But she's not a headline hero, right? Like if you say Captain Marvel to people on the street, they don't know who Captain Marvel is, not yet. They'll probably know after the movie comes out. Um, and so I think that might be the one. I think if the big two could get away with that, it's Captain Marvel, or at least if Marvel could get away with it. Um, but I'm outside of that, maybe on a larger scale. Like I really wonder if either of the companies could ever have something so dramatic happen that like fans felt like, wow, this really happened. Like, oh man, there's not going to be any more Batman books. I think one of the biggest problems currently is that we have so far in advance pre-sale solicitations that by the time Batman died in Grant Morrison's run, we already knew Battle for the Cow was coming. Um, so I don't know. Like I've never been able to be a part of that like mass delirium of just like, no, yeah, Superman's dead. Like that's it, man. Superman died. And maybe people were just dumber back then, just didn't know, weren't as savvy. I'm not sure, but I kind of want to experience that. I kind of want, to see one of these characters die and be like, wow, like it doesn't seem like they're coming back. Um, I just want to believe it, and I just wonder if there's anything that either of the companies could do to make me believe it. I don't know. I'm not really sure I made a point with this. Just kind of wanted to talk about the death of Superman and death in comics. Does anybody think that there's that? Does anybody have an idea of like something that could be done that you would believe. Like, oh man, that's it. Uh, I feel like we get a couple of those kind of backdoored. Like Grant Morrison kind of ended the New Gods in Final Crisis. Like that's about the end of the Fourth World and the beginning of the Fifth World. Like he kind of ends the New Gods there. But nobody really noticed or really cared. Um, does any well, and I mean that was a big thing with the Fourth World was that Jack Kirby had an ending for the Fourth World, and it was going to, I don't want to say it's like it's a fact, but the main speculation is that if Jack Kirby had gotten to do the Fourth World as he intended, and you have to remember, all of those books made it to like 12 issues. Mr. Miracle makes it to 18, I think, or at least Kirby makes it to 18. I think Mr. Miracle might go beyond 18, but Kirby's only on those books for about a year. But from what I understand, Kirby had plans for like 100 issues on each of those books. But the rumor is that at the end of all of that, the New Gods saga would conclude with Darkseid and Orion fighting each other to the death and them both dying. And I want to say this was part of the Hunger Dogs, and then DC had them rewrite it because, again, as legend goes, the superpowers figures were coming out, and they had some of the New Gods, specifically Darkseid. So like, well, he can't die, so Kirby had to refix the ending. But I feel like this is an idea that everyone feels like should happen. I feel like, at least with certain characters, it feels like there is a natural ending point. And I feel like writers kind of take the character to that point, but then aren't allowed to kill them. And so even if a writer does get a character to that point, the company tends not to let that happen. You know, you could tell the greatest Superman or Wonder Woman or Batman story ever told, and do something like Grant Morrison did that really encompasses the entire history of that character, and then cap it off with the end of that character. And when you write those words, and as a fan who reads those words and looks at those pictures, at best you have 2 years. At best you have 2 years, and then this character will be back. And I kind of wish one of the companies would do something about that. DC did for about 4 seconds after Brightest Day. They said no one can come back from the dead. And then New 52 happened. Not even a year later. So DC kind of seemed like they were going to do something with it and then didn't. But I would kind of like to see that. I don't need either company to all of a sudden, I don't need them to be like, okay, well, the Punisher shot Captain America, so Captain America's just gone. Just the, Punisher just starts killing a bunch of people, right? Like Captain America, Daredevil, Namor, like they're all dead. I don't want like just death and destruction, but I would kind of like to see or be duped into believing that a character is dead. Because I know they're never going to die, but if they could do a story big enough that has enough meaning behind it, and then keep the character gone long enough, I think everyone would believe it. I don't know. I feel like it is this mass illusion that used to be able to be pulled, and we're just too savvy for it now, which maybe just means we need to come up with a new way to do it. I don't know what that new way is. I'm not the man with the answers. I'm just asking the questions here. But yeah, just something that's been rattling around in my head.